Hi, mate. Yeah, hi. I was just wondering if you could sort me out. Yeah, keep it on the down low, but I am looking. Yeah, good quality stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah. What have you got? Southampton v Bournemouth, the 3 p.m. kickoff. HD and a stable link. English commentary. You got yourself a deal, mate. I'm sure everyone watching this video has found themselves in the following familiar position come 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in the UK. Surfing through the 7 seas of the internet to find themselves on dodgy websites that I couldn't possibly name, and frantically opening up links and relentlessly battling against the barrage of pop-ups appearing on your computer screen. Maybe you win the battle, close all the pop-ups, find a stream that displays the game in something close to 720p, and one that remains relatively stable, even if it does happen to have Arabic commentary for some reason. Or maybe you give up, turn on the television or go down the pub to watch the scores roll in with Jeff Stelling, Paul Merson, Michael Dawson and the rest of the gang. If you're really out there, maybe you're even watching BT Score. I mean, I guess someone has to. Either way, you're not watching your team play football on your television. And of course, that's all down to the 3 p.m. blackout ruling that's been in place in the English game since 1987. UEFA's Article 48 states that member nations are allowed to select a 2.5-hour weekend slot where live football is banned from television screens if at least 50% of the matches in the top 2 divisions kick off at the same time. With 3 p.m. on a Saturday being a traditional slot for all football games at every level in the English pyramid, the FA were convinced to take advantage of this ruling in the late 80s and, in conjunction with the broadcasters, decided that between 2:45 p.m. and 5:15 p.m. no football, domestic or otherwise, will be televised. And outside of a brief relaxation during the lockdown period of COVID-19, that's the way it's remained for 36 years. An annoying, no longer fit for purpose, outdated piece of legislation, the key foundation for the entire English football pyramid, or something in between. The introduction of the 3 p.m. blackout was conceived in 1987 when ITV struck the first major broadcasting deal in the UK to show Premier League games nationwide. There was an underlying worry from key figures across the game at the time that broadcasting any sort of football would completely destroy live attendances outside of the top division in England. In theory, this makes a lot of sense. A club like Gillingham can't compete for audiences with superstar players or top quality football, but it can carve out its own market with its geographic location and influence in its community. If people can watch the glamour of the Premier League on a Saturday afternoon, would anyone even bother to travel to the Priestfield Stadium to watch some League Two action? The argument, however, could easily be reversed and hold just as much weight. If you support a team in the top 2 divisions, which if you're a football fan based in England you most likely do, then would your team simply not being on television really convince you to trek out to a ground to watch a much lower quality of team play a much lower quality of football? Interestingly, I think the answer to both of these questions might actually just be yes. Look, no one seriously expects a die-hard Manchester United fan to simply ignore the Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff because it's not on TV and instead head to another team in the local area. And at the same time, it's not reasonable to presume that a season ticket holder at Gillingham would simply not fill the seat he's already paid for to sit indoors and watch a different top-flight game. The 3 p.m. blackout is not targeting these types of football fans, and if you're watching this, The likelihood is that the 3 p.m. blackout does not target people like you or me. The 3 p.m. blackout instead targets these floating fans each weekend. People who are more flexible and potentially not as die-hard in their support for one singular team. And although that sounds silly, a huge amount of the population who consume football in this country do fall into this category. It's not necessarily about a specific time frame or on purposely not broadcasting a specific set of fixtures that may cause a drop in attendance in the lower leagues of the football pyramid. It's about fostering patterns of behaviour that keep the turnstiles rotating at 3 p.m. at clubs who badly need the money and the audience. Football is consumed in a variety of ways, and I think many people actually overestimate the percentage of people who watch football every weekend on their own, in their own house and on their television. There is a huge amount of football fans who simply don't do this every single weekend and instead will catch a game down the pub or join some friends around a TV that happens to have the game on. People consume the game in any of these ways during any given weekend. Let's say you're in the pub pre-match before your local League 1 or League 2 team kicks off, with plans to head down to the ground just before 3 p.m. The pub shows the early 12:30 p.m. Premier League kickoff, and as the final whistle comes around, there's no real decision to make. There's no football for 3 hours, you've already made plans to head down to see your League 2 team, and there isn't a lot that will ever change that. Now imagine, on a cold, rainy, grey winter's afternoon, the early kickoff ends and the coverage on the big screen in the pub simply rolls through to start covering the 3 p.m. Premier League game. It's the big one. It's Arsenal or Man United or Chelsea or Liverpool. Would these fans still be convinced to continue with their original plan, or do they just stay glued to the television screen? The whole point of the 3 p.m. blackout is that lower league clubs that sit below England's top 2 divisions become an appealing place to spend a Saturday afternoon to these floating fans who simply enjoy football and are looking for somewhere to go. As already mentioned, die-hard fans of lower league clubs can more or less be counted on to show up every weekend. And well, if they don't, they've already paid for their season ticket at the start of the season anyway. Lower league clubs are injected with a good chunk of revenue at the start of the season, and then casual fans paying on the day as they go through the turnstiles provide a small influx of sustainable cash flow through the doors, vital to keep the club up and running. Look, okay, you may say that everything I've said so far is a bit overblown, and there's no way that someone that's interested in football simply wouldn't find an illegal stream to watch a 3 p.m. game, beamed across the world from another broadcaster in another country where they are not restricted by the same blackout rule. And I'm sure that you, watching right now, probably knows where to find an illegal stream to watch a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday. But you and I are simply a small section of the populace, and it doesn't reflect that way on a larger scale. To put it simply, no, not everyone knows where to find an illegal stream. My dad doesn't, my uncle doesn't, and thousands of football fans who are simply just not as clued into internet culture don't either. Even the ones that are might not be totally convinced. As already mentioned, people enjoy watching the game in many ways, and a major one is sitting in front of your own TV on the comfort of your own sofa in front of a big screen with no hassle. Although there are of course ways to get close to this experience when illegally streaming the football, the setup to do this is simply too cumbersome for many. You know, not everyone has a PC set up with high-speed internet, and it's not like that matters anyway, as sometimes it's absolutely pot luck finding a working stream that doesn't freeze every 5 minutes and isn't a blurry mess that's 12 minutes behind the live score pinging off on your phone. Even I, someone who may or may not have experience with watching illegal football streams, may sometimes find myself so frustrated at trying to find a damn stream that actually works that I've turned the whole thing off and simply done something else. England isn't the only country where people play football, so let's have a look at how the other leagues do it and how attendances in the lower leagues of England compare to those across Europe. In Germany, the second division has its own kickoff slot at 1:30 p.m. on a Saturday, specifically when no other Bundesliga games are being played. The third division is at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, avoiding direct Bundesliga overlap as well. In France, the second division plays Saturdays at 7 p.m, again when no other top division game is occurring. In Italy, Serie B games are played at times to avoid Serie A's 3 p.m. kickoffs, and La Liga is actually just kind of fucked with all of its match scheduling, and games are played at all kinds of kickoff slots and spread throughout the whole weekend. All of this points towards an understanding from every top league across Europe that there needs to be some kind of protection for lower league attendances in the game. England has historically done this by having a 3 p.m. kickoff slot that permutates throughout the entire English pyramid, including into non-league, and having a broadcasting blackout. Other nations across Europe have allotted specific time slots for their top division to play when their lower divisions are not. So, does this actually lead to better attendances for clubs in the lower divisions? Let's look at the average attendances of the third division across Europe and see how the English third division compares. All of these figures are provided by Transfermarkt, and all the sources are in the description to this video. So far, during this COVID-free season, the average attendance for League One in England is 10,490. If we look at the average attendance figures for the third division in Spain, France and Italy, we can see that the English league narrowly beats them, with Spain's third division averaging 9,548, France with 8,060 and Italy with 9,550. A win for the third division in England, but come on, to be fair, it's only a narrow one, with, in reality, not much difference in attendance figures across these leagues. And, no, hold on a minute. Sorry, those are the figures for the Segunda, Ligue 2 and Serie B, the second tiers in Spain, France and Italy, not the third. That's right, the third division in England boasts a better average attendance figure than the second tiers in France, Spain and Italy. The actual figures for the third tiers in these nations are 2,476 for Spain, 1,948 for France and 1,591 for Italy, absolutely trounced by England's 10,490 in League One. Bradford City, a club down in the fourth division of English football, has an average attendance so far in 22-23 of 14,253. 14,000! For completion, here are the average attendance figures in the top three divisions in Germany, who are the closest in comparison to England, but still fall slightly behind in regards to their third division. It also must be stated for all of these numbers that Germany and France have a bigger population than England and Wales, making the attendance numbers even more impressive. Okay, as fun as it might be to simply dunk on the other leagues across Europe, there is a point to all of this, and that's to show just how much of a different beast the footballing pyramid is in England to many other countries in Europe who also boast elite, well-attended first divisions. The English football pyramid, right through from the very top to the very bottom, is unbelievably strong and thriving from interest from the public. It's a beautiful thing and an absolute testament to the love the nation has for the game. And the one consistent through line through every division at every stage of the pyramid is the 3 p.m. kickoffs and the 3 p.m. television blackout. Even if you're still a skeptic, it's hard to argue that there must be something to all of this. All of the top leagues in Europe have some form of blackout in one way or another. England has a TV broadcast blackout during 3 p.m. to 5 p.m, and the other leagues mostly have their own singular slot where the top division games are played to avoid clashes with the lower divisions. That could be a solution for the English league. How about we give the Premier League its own kickoff slot that doesn't clash with any of the other divisions in the country? With the amount of games going on around the country on any given weekend, this would be a tough ask. You need to consider other elements we've not even discussed, such as policing numbers and health and safety regulations regarding potential overcrowding on public transport. But even if there was a theoretical time slot that could be demised for the Premier League to play with no clashes, would the public even accept this? 3 p.m. on a Saturday has been the time for live football for literal decades. As touched on before, this is almost habitual for thousands upon thousands of people up and down the country who regard football synonymously with 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. Decades of culture and behavioural norms would need to be changed if the 3 p.m. slot for the Premier League were to move. There's a match-going fans element to all of this that shouldn't be ignored. If not at 3 p.m, then when? People already don't like the early 12:30 p.m. kickoff due to an early start to get up, travel to the stadium and bundle into the ground in time, and away fans often bemoan late kickoffs as they come hand in hand with a dash to the train station after each game to try and catch one of the few remaining trains for long journeys to get back home. It's possible, sure, and with any change you're going to piss some people off, and things don't have to be the way they are for tradition's sake, but ask yourself, what do we even get from all of this? An easier way for a non-match going fan to watch Man United on a Saturday afternoon. There's no way of knowing what removing the 3 p.m. blackout will really do to attendances across the English pyramid. I can't sit here and show you a before and after set of numbers. There's a possibility that removing the 3 p.m. blackout has no real effect on League One or League Two or non-league football attendance figures. There is a possibility that supplementing the removal of a 3 p.m. blackout by giving the Premier League its own kickoff slot on a Saturday would be enough to offset any damage. But are we really going to potentially dismantle decades of tradition and quite possibly damage the very fabric of the English football pyramid, a country whose footballing pyramid is looked upon in envy from across the world, so a certain subsection of people will find it slightly more convenient to watch Liverpool v Leicester City at 3 p.m. on a Saturday? To me, it seems like a huge risk to take, to mess with the fundamentals of the nation's sport, fundamentals that have been in place for decades and have allowed the sport to thrive and flourish on a global scale for the sake of yet another reason to stay indoors and watch television. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't really wedge it back in. If the 3 p.m. blackout goes, it's going to be irreversible. You can't make a change that big with every implication it might have for all aspects of the game all over the country, and then simply reverse it a year later if it's clear that it's not working out. We can go further with this. Let's hypothetically say that the 3 p.m. blackout does go and all Premier League games, no matter what time slot, are eligible to be shown on television. What happens to the broadcasting rights? Well, we know exactly what would happen. The Premier League, who already sells its game to domestic broadcasters for a total of £5 billion, will now have yet another string in their bow when it comes to negotiations. Sky, BT Sport, Amazon Prime Video. Between the three of you, you paid us £5 billion during the last round of negotiations. But now the 3 p.m. blackout is gone. We have up to 190 more games this season to offer. There's no way we're giving you all of those for free. The price is going up. And look, if Sky, BT Sport and Amazon Prime end up paying more for the rights to air the Premier League, do you know where they're going to recover those costs? With your wallet, with your paycheck. If you think it's outrageous the amount of money it costs to watch the Premier League in the UK right now, just wait until they bump the prices up. And that's even if they do buy the rights to the 3 p.m. games. As covered in a previous video, loads of streaming services, including Apple TV and Netflix, have been sniffing around the Premier League to nab some sweet Premier League broadcasting rights for their services for some time now. The 3 PM blackout might go, but what if this just causes Apple TV to buy a bunch of 3 PM games on weekends featuring your team? It's not out of the question. You already need a Prime Video account to legally watch the Christmas fixtures, which used to be a staple of the Sky Sports package. Hooray, the 3 PM blackout is gone and the games will be broadcasted, but now you got to go and buy yourself an Apple TV subscription. Maybe Netflix too. Hulu might get involved. Peacock, HBO Max, Disney Plus, who knows where it ends? Or, if you're not going to go to the game and you're desperate to watch the match, you could just do what you're doing anyway and find another slightly less legal way to watch it. And I think therein lies my point. English league football is different. English league football is strong, and if you're desperate to watch the 3 PM game, you'll find a way to do it anyway. And if you're not so desperate, maybe you'll head down to your nearest professional football club, which England has more than any other nation in Europe, and give some cash to go through the turnstiles. And isn't that the definition of the 3 PM blackout serving its purpose? Looking forward, I'm actually quite pessimistic about the 3 PM blackout staying come the next round of negotiations. In a sport where the number must always go up and forward thinking is dismissed in favour of short-term gains, it's hard to imagine a scenario where the league prioritises the preservation of the English game over the chance to get a few more of their games featured on TV and sold to the highest bidder. As the interest in the English game expands domestically and we chaotically stumble forwards even further into the internet age of instant gratification, on-demand television and arguments over Twitter, it's a little hard to believe that the wood will be seen through the trees here. The game is so big and so successful now. The clubs have so much power and leverage, and if enough of them bound together to kick up a storm, the leagues will have to bend to their will eventually. And unfortunately, these changes will all be backed by the perpetually online modern football fan, desperate to watch Manchester City beat Southampton 6-0 on television at 3 PM with no interest in watching anything else. I mean, hey, how can you go on Twitter and tweet how Harry Payne is a finished footballer and Conte plays terrorist football if the Spurs match isn't on TV and instead you're watching your local club? Just unthinkable for many. As I have always said on this channel, I am more than happy to be wrong. I don't know everything, and as I've already covered, there is of course a timeline here where the 3 PM blackout goes and everything just remains perfectly intact, just now with the added convenience of a bit more football on TV. And for the sake of the English game, a brilliant, flourishing, jubilant pyramid that can be seen and felt from all the way up in Newcastle to all the way down in Plymouth, I genuinely hope that it does. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Yeah. What are you in for? Theft? Well, times are tough, mate. Times are tough. I can understand that. I can understand that. And you? Arson. Your wife cheated on you with your best mate, so you burned his house down. Well, shouldn't have done that, mate, but I can understand that. I can understand that. Oh, me? Yeah, I watched a 3 PM game online. Yeah, I found a link. Yeah. Bournemouth v Southampton. Yeah, it was 0-0. 0-0. Yeah, can't believe it. Can't believe it, mate. And you? You clap when the plane lands? What is wrong with you? You disgust me. What is wrong with you?